Weed resistance in the U.S. is a serious issue. We haven't really lost yield yet. Farmers will control weeds some way or another. But what we have seen in the last 5 years is the use of herbicides has gone up about 50% in corn and soybeans. So the amount of herbicide used and the expense to control those weeds has gone up considerably. The other concern that some people have is that the amount of conservation tillage has been declining because farmers have had to go back to tillage. Everybody knew scientifically that weed resistance was going to happen sooner or later. And actually with water hemp, we've got just a few weeds that are really the problem. Most weeds, they're not really an issue. We've selected for a couple of weed species, especially Palmer amaranth, its cousin water hemp, and the Coniza species, that after 50 or 60 years of using herbicides and annual row crops, they've simply adapted to this kind of weed control. Well, weed resistance is going to continue to spread. There's kind of a short-term, short-medium-term view and a long-term view. In the short-medium term, we don't have a lot of new technologies coming, so we need to manage with what we have. And in general, everybody's recommending that farmers use a pre-emergent followed by a post-emergent, rather than historically they just use the post-emergent. That gets more modes of action into the field. It also it's more likely to prevent weeds from surviving and making seed. And the seed is what we really have to control. The seed pool is where the resistance is building up. Long term, we don't have very many modes of action left. We know that water hemp and Palmer and Coniza will become resistant to all of them eventually. And so we need some new technologies. And so there aren't very many companies left. The amount of money it takes to do this is very expensive, but we are seeing a small resurgence in people looking for new herbicide modes of action and some new technologies like RNAi. We have to use herbicides. So whatever herbicide we bring into the system is going to develop resistance eventually. So now we're working on the auxin traits. We're going to bring those in. They are as old as it gets. Those are the first herbicides that were ever discovered. So they will do a good job of patching glyphosate, controlling glyphosate-resistant broadleaf weeds. But we know eventually the weeds will get resistant to those too. But there aren't very many other choices, so we use what we have. When you're in continuous soybeans or soybeans, cotton, that's where we see grasses become more of a problem because you're more reliant on the glyphosate. Well, there are several approaches to finding new technologies for weed control. There's some effort to find some new modes of action. Those aren't easy to find, but I think we'll find a few. RNAi is a very promising technology for pest control. We're already using it as a transgenic trait for rootworm, and the industry is as well. And I think topically applied RNAi will probably be a very important technology, but it's got a lot of hurdles to overcome yet. A lot of things need to be worked out, and it's probably at least a decade away. The takeaway is the way to manage it is to go to in a row crop system is to go to a pre-emergent followed by a post-emergent. It's a little more expensive, but whether you're trying to prevent resistance from happening or you're dealing with weeds that are already resistant, that's the way to do it. It's what we've got. And that will buy us the most time.